Good to go, Jen.
Okay, go ahead.
Welcome back, everyone. We did meet in closed session to discuss our ongoing discussions with Adelaide Metcalf, and just a quick report of what we discussed. We did report that the deputy mayor and myself met with the mayor of Adelaide Metcalf along with Councillor Brody, and that on April 25th there is a ruling coming down from the court on the latest court case. So that is the report on our closed meeting. Okay, and just for the audience, just so you know, we have a new audio-visual system, so it's really sensitive and it'll pick up every whisper and every sidebar conversation that you have. So some of us have learned the hard way, so just like to warn you about that. Okay, item 4, approval of the council minutes of March 20th, 23. Were there any questions or clarifications? Seeing none, can we have a motion to accept? Councillor Pelkman, seconded by Councillor Hippel. All those in favor? Carried. So on the drainage matters, we did defer item 5.1. So we're going to move on to communications. Did anyone want to pull a correspondence for further discussion? Is there anybody have anything they wanted to pull for discussion? Well, yes, Councillor Wilsey.
6.6.
Okay, 6.6, did you?
Yeah, it's a
Can I just jump in? I was also gonna pull that one, so if you want to speak to, no, you go ahead and speak to it first.
I just wanted to point out that we've had one of our residents took the time to write a handwritten letter and send it in to us just about his development and with what we're thinking as far as reducing the amount of land we're using, increasing density, making sure that we're doing everything we can for the climate and to make housing affordable. All of that together by increasing density and doing apartment buildings rather than single family homes, and to reduce the sprawl. And I really appreciated the effort that was because it's a lot more work to write a handwritten letter and send it in rather than just have something typewritten. So I wanted to make sure we took the time to at least appreciate it.
I agree, and I had many of the same sentiments. I read it and highlighted many of the things, so many of the things that Mr. Langford noted, I agreed with. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I completely agree with his point of view, and I think if we go ahead and take a look later in the agenda when we get to the report from the building department, I think over the last 5 years, if I remember correctly, about 1,000 of the units built were single detached, and about 500 now are what we call medium. And I think we're seeing a shift now. I think 2/3 is low density, 1/3 is medium density, I think, in this report. And the trend is going to be towards increased intensification within our urban boundary. So I fully take his point, but it takes time to kind of redirect the process. But I hope this trend continues, and over the years we'll see a rising percentage be in high density and medium density to balance off the low density. So I think if we look at that report later in today's meeting, we'll be able to tell Mr. Langford that there has been progress, and I think we're headed in the correct direction.
Any other comments on that one? Okay. The one that I had wanted to discuss, Paul, was 6.3 from the town of Essex. Being one that's concerned about revenue, I did highlight that it was further noted that the public tax sale process is burdensome to a municipality. So my question is for the acting CAO, is that in reference to tax sales for tax arrears?
Through the chair to the chair. Yes, it is in reference to tax sales. So currently currently the process is now any excess funds once a property is sold through property tax sale sits in court for up to 10 years. It used to be 3 years, but they've now moved that to 10 years. So gives anyone with legal opportunity to retrieve those funds up to 10 years to get it. So right now, if anything over the excess of the amount that's owing for property taxes would be paid into court.
Thank you for that. I didn't want a motion or anything. I just wanted to recognize that it's something that we should be concerned about. there are no other concerns regarding communications, can I have a motion to receive the communication items for information? Councillor Wilsey, seconded by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Moving on to item 7, unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to reports from departments. Turn 8.1 financial services, we'll turn that over to Councillor Kennis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item be fairly short, really just introducing the fact that the audit of the 2022 financial statements for the municipality are already underway, and I will let the acting CEO provide some more details on that.
Thank you. Through the chair to council. So basically, this is just a planning report that's presented by our auditors, BDO, just to the roles and responsibilities involved in the audit. They have been in twice now, and we're coming up probably by the end of the month. They should have completed their audit, so then they'll be coming back to council to report on their findings for the 22 year end. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
On page 9, it specifically calls out that they show a significant risk in planned responses to management override of controls. And they're saying a risk that management is overriding internal controls. There's got to be a reason that was called out specifically on our report. Is there a history of that over the past year, or why is BDO concerned?
So through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, so that is not in reference to Strathroy-Caradoc. That's sort of a standard letter that comes from BDO and is part of actually the CPA, so the Chartered Professional Accountants. These are the things that they sort of target within municipalities. It has not been a concern through any of the audits previously. It's merely just something that's part of the sort of standard report that they provide.
Okay, and I guess that was where I was confused, because I read the first line that said they've identified the following significant risks that require special audit consideration, so I thought that was specific to our municipality, but it's not. Again,
through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, so that's not in reference to Strathroy-Caradoc, that's sort of in reference to municipal audits is sort of what they typically flag. So depending on if it was a not-for-profit or a charity, for instance, one of the things that they would flag there is the inability to verify donations. That's sort of standard in every audit letter. In fact, every audit report that a charity receives, that's one of the disclaimers in their opinion, is that they state that they're unable to verify donations. So in a municipal setting, those are one of the things that they look at, is just the management control and the ability to override those. But that's not a concern at this municipality.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the Director of Finance, just 2 questions. Is this the first time this company is doing an audit of Strathroy-Caradoc?
Through the chair to Councillor Brennan, BDO has been with us since 2014, I think it is. So it'll be the eighth year that they've audited our books.
And each year they provide us with the same type of warnings. This is we receive this every year.
Yeah, this is standard issue.
Yeah, thank you.
As part of the audit.
Are there any other questions on this? I just to comment on that, I think we as council should take comfort in this, as well as the citizens of the municipality, that an audit is done on an annual basis, and certainly over the last 7 audits, there haven't been any major concerns raised in those audit reports, and I mean, we'll see what happens this audit, but I expect it to be pretty much similar to what happens in previous years. So if there's no other questions, I would ask for a motion to accept this report. Councillor Brennan, Deputy Mayor Maguire, all in favor? Thank you, and with that, I will turn it back to the mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kennis. Item 8.2, building and planning. Deputy Mayor McGuire, you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship. So tonight, Director Huff will take us through a couple of agenda items, one of them being on the residential land needs study, but I do just want to take a moment to, just so the citizens understand what's going on, and to say thank you to the director that I have the absolute privilege of working with on a weekly basis. So out of each department, there is obviously a counselor that is assigned, and they refer to it as a chairman, but I see it more as a liaison between council and that department. And I was privileged, or I am privileged enough to work with our building department, building, planning, and bylaw, and Director Huff being the director of that. So I meet with Director Huff once a week, as do all of the counselors who are appointed to be with one of the sections in our municipality. I know it's challenging at times for Director Huff as I try to learn very high-level stuff about building and planning. So I just want to thank you. Today was a long conversation, as most of ours are. She spends the entire morning on Mondays with me and her staff, and it's valuable, it's insightful. I do appreciate it. The knowledge that you have and the way that you can talk high level and immediately switch to give me the extreme details on subjects that you have no idea what I'm going to ask is a credit to you and your team. So with that, I turn over this to you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report that's before you, first of all, consideration of an endorsement with respect to the 2022 residential land needs study, as well as the stage 1 evaluation matrix, all in relation to a comprehensive review process, which is the technical term really to describe the process of considering a potential settlement boundary expansion. Is a follow-up to the special meeting of council that was held back in January, I think it was January 23rd. At that meeting, you've seen draft versions of these documents. So these are these documents brought back to you for consideration. Tonight with me is Matt Rodriguez from WSP, as well as Tim Williams, Senior Planner with the County of Middlesex, and the three of us, as well as with Brianna Hammer, as well as Bill Dakin now, are really comprised of the committee that is managing this settlement boundary review expansion process. And Matt has created a PowerPoint presentation that he wishes to share with council and the public. And we'll go through that presentation with council, and then the three of us will be available for questions after that, if there are any. So with that, I will hand it over to Matt. Hopefully he's able to share his screen. Excellent. And we'll go from there. Thank you.
I was able to click the button, but it is disabled. If the clerk could enable that. There we go, thank you. Okay, my screen should be up now. Yeah, I've seen a thumbs up from someone, so I'll off we go. So good evening, evening council, community members of the public, and those watching online. As Director Huff alluded to, my name is Matt Rodriguez with WSP, and it's nice to be back again to bring back this stage of the comprehensive review process and the body of work that's been completed since over the past couple of years, but also since we last were together in January. So today's presentation is really just a brief overview of the process to date for those maybe tuning in online and for members of council. And certainly can get into a bit more of the details if you need to, if there's any questions, but we want to keep the presentation itself a fairly high level. So we're here this evening to seek council's endorsement of the 2022 residential land needs assessment and to seek council's endorsement of the study area and evaluation criteria. I'll get into a bit more of what that means coming up. So we'll go over just the overall project timeline, an overview of what we're calling the stage 1 evaluation matrix, and then just some next steps in the process. So in terms of the timeline, we're now wrapping up, and this marks the conclusion of stage 1 of the process, and we're looking forward to diving into stage 2. And so this project's been going on now for well over a year, with notices sent out to different landowners. We've received many requests, identified different municipal priorities for the process, but concurrently, the municipality also updated its land needs assessment. And this all culminated in a special council meeting in January, where we presented the draft, updated land needs assessment, and a stage 1 evaluation matrix. So it really is our preliminary assessment. So that's looking at all the information that we have to date, and setting the ground framework for how we're actually going to evaluate lands and identify a recommendation that we can present to council and the community for more input. And this process isn't being completed on its own. It's really being informed by the 2020 land needs assessment, which was completed a couple of years back, the 2021 employment land study, the official plan review, which has been going on for a couple of years now, and also missing from the slide is the county's official plan review. And so really we're taking some of our cues and directives from the county through this process, through the process called a comprehensive review. And that's where we're just making sure that there's enough land to accommodate residential and employment growth to 2046. So now we're in stage 2 and beginning with council's endorsement this evening, beginning with our formal evaluation and really studying some of those lands in a bit more detail. Once we've released some recommended lands, we'll certainly have lots more consultation with yourselves, members of the public, with landowners, with key stakeholders in the community, before bringing forward a recommendation for endorsement and seeking council's endorsement on a preferred scenario, and then all the formal work around bringing forward an official plan amendment to actually update the Strathroy-Caradoc official plan with the new mapping. So a brief overview of what we're talking about when we refer to the stage 1 evaluation matrix. So there's sort of 4 key tenets of this document, which is available on the project website, and I believe also as part of the council agenda package this evening. The first is to identify a study area for settlement boundary expansion. So we wanted to put a bit of a line on a map to say these are the lands we're going to look at. We're not looking at every corner of the municipality, but rather we're setting some foundations of key areas that we'll look to around Strathroy and Mount Bridges. We're summarizing the residential and employment land need. So taking, all of these inputs from the county, from the land needs assessment, from the employment land study, and summarizing it to say, here's the amount of land that we need just to identify based on all this technical work that's been completed. We've also provided an overview of provincial, county, and local policy directives. This process isn't being completed in a silo, but rather informed by all levels of government, from the province, the county, and the municipality, to set the stage for smart and responsible growth in the community. And another key element of this matrix is to establish a series of evaluation criteria. And really what these are key areas that we'll be looking at, key themes, to assess the lands within the study area, and I'll get into those in a bit more detail. And so the study area really is, as I said, the area, or areas rather, where the expansion could occur, pending the outcomes of evaluation. And so some of the core drivers of this, the study area should be within the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc. It must be contiguous with the urban settlement areas of Strathroy and Mount Bridges. So what that means is, we're not going to pick a little pocket of land in the middle of nowhere without it being connected somehow to an existing settlement area. It also must be serviced or capable of future flow municipal services, which includes water and wastewater, for example. And it must be larger than the land required in the 2022 land needs assessment and employment land study. So what that means is that if we have a study area, it needs to be larger than what we actually need, because at the end of the day, we'll be whittling it out. There might be areas that are unsuitable for development. There might be natural constraints. There might be hazards. There might be other reasons why it can't be brought in. So it just needs to be larger than what we actually need to be able to study it fully. So this is an overview of what that study area is, and this study area has not changed since it was presented to council in January. This is the same study area that was presented to council and the community back January 23rd. So it looks quite large, but to those watching online, rest assured that all of these areas in orange will not necessarily be needed for future growth. The red squares, sort of on the bottom left of the map, conceptually show the amount of employment land at the top and community area at the bottom of what is required. And so it really is only a small portion of that study area that we actually require to accommodate growth to 2046. But this just gives us the flexibility to fulsomely study lands and rule out areas that really aren't suitable for growth for one reason or another, and we'll be certainly providing some descriptions of that as we advance through the process. And so just to summarize, it's about 58 hectares of employment land that is required to the year 2046, and approximately 110 hectares for residential. And so that includes things like commercial areas and institutional places like schools and places of worship. And that's all kind of captured in that residential need, whereas employment is really jobs, industry, and potentially office parks, for example, is what we talk when we talk about employment land. That's what we're referring to. So just a bit of a zoom in again to what those study areas are adjacent to both Strathroy and Mountain Bridges. And so, and again, this is available online for people if they want to zoom in a bit more and get into a bit more detail. Council will recall that since the launch of the comprehensive review process, the municipality has received several requests from landowners in the development community wishing to participate in this process. And so they're certainly invited to submit requests to the project team to further analyze different parcels that they may be interested in to bring into the settlement area boundary. Back in June of last year, a deadline was set to provide sufficient time for review to incorporate each request into the Stage 1 evaluation matrix. And ultimately, all that input received from landowners will help inform the project team's evaluation of the study area. Since the January 2023 meeting, the project team, myself, Jen, and Tim, hosted one-on-one meetings in February and March with all the interested landowners who had submitted requests, and that is summarized in the staff report this evening, as well as the notes from that session. So those are great opportunities for the landowners to either ask questions, share more information, and for us to outline some of the next steps in the process. So coming back to the evaluation criteria that I referenced earlier, there's really 5 core areas that we're looking at. The first being infrastructure, second, community connectivity, growth management, environmental protection, and agriculture. So on the infrastructure side, there's certainly a lot of things that we need to look at when thinking about future growth in the community. I won't read these verbatim, but these things include making sure there's capacity at the wastewater treatment plant for new lands, as well as the municipal water supply over the planning horizon. We also need to look at, is wastewater or water servicing available, or can it be made available to the lands? Can the area or recommended lands be serviced by existing stormwater management infrastructure, and is there capacity to access drainage, to capture surface runoff? And also, do the lands consider planning and existing infrastructure investments in capital projects and mitigate municipal financial risks? There has been a slight modification to this criteria since we last presented this to council to capture existing infrastructure. And really the intention of that is to think about if there are other investments in hard infrastructure, whether by the municipality, county, or other utility provider, that we can look at that through this process and really, I guess, again, understand the costs and the sequencing and infrastructure needs of growth. And again, this criteria also underscores some of the changing contexts around municipal finances introduced, for example, through Bill 23. So we'll be thinking about all that through this process. On the community connectivity side, we'll be looking at access to major transportation corridors, such as highways and county roads. How can we build the local road network in an area? Are there major environmental features that need to be avoided or protected? And is it possible to build roads? Can we connect or make good use of existing and planned soft services, such as trails and transportation and parks and recreation facilities? A lot of these identified through the master plans that were completed over the past couple of years. Looking at the employment lands, thinking about how they're potentially well connected to existing employment areas, or do they offer expansion of existing or neighboring employment areas? We also want to look to understand if development of those lands will meaningfully contribute to a complete community and compact urban form. So we're working to achieve some of the other broader planning goals that the community has. And lastly, looking at factors around land use compatibility on nearby lands. So for example, are we putting houses right next to a factory, and maybe what are those compatibility concerns, and how can we address them through this process? On the environmental protection side, that's certainly an important piece. Thinking about how lands are affected by the natural heritage system, and so that includes things like woodlands and provincially significant wetlands. In considering the lands within sort of the broader context of this system, can we access those lands? Are there, say woodlots or wetlands that prevent us from accessing the lot? And lastly, do the lands contain areas of provincial significance, such as provincially significant wetlands? And these are really key features for the municipality to protect, and certainly the official plan sets the stage for their protection and from against development as well. Certainly most of the lands, the vast majority of the lands that are shown in the study area in some form of agricultural, they're the agricultural designation rather, but have some form of agricultural use today. And so what is the level of impact on existing livestock operations and minimum distance separation setbacks? So thinking about existing agricultural uses and trying to, making sure that there's compatibility between these uses. And also trying to understand if the lands are located in a specialty crop area, making sure that we're avoiding, say, the best soils for where we might grow certain crops. Lastly, on the growth management front, again, some of the key things that we've spoken about already, are the lands contiguous with the urban settlement boundary? Are they in the Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc? As Council will recall, there were requests for lands that may not have been, from landowners rather, that may not have been in Strathroy-Caradoc. So again, looking at that, are there known plans to develop these lands within the planning horizon? Do we understand if there are development intentions, and how can bringing these lands into the settlement area boundary contribute to housing supply, contribute to achieving some of these growth targets that the municipality has? And then understanding if the lands are best suited for community or employment uses. Again, community being the residential, commercial, institutional, or the employment uses, which are sometimes referred to as industrial uses. What's best for those lands? And then lastly, can the land support the municipality's housing need by type and density? And so what that means is kind of building on some of the discussion that was had just before this, is there an opportunity on these lands to say build medium or higher density housing forms, or is it just low density that is perhaps best accommodated on these lands? And what can we reasonably see being built on those lands? So certainly a lot of factors, a lot of criteria that we'll be looking at through this process. And so that sort of wraps up the evaluation criteria. Again, just to summarize everything that I've sort of gone through, the municipality has completed the land needs assessment, employment land study. They together have identified that additional land is required to the year 2046. On the residential side, we're looking at about 110 gross hectares. On the employment land side, we're looking at about 58 hectares. And really now where we're at is determining the most suitable locations for where this growth can occur through this comprehensive review process. So I believe this is my last slide, just in terms of some of the next steps. Again, the project website, growingtogethersc.ca, is the central repository for all information. So everything that is being presented this evening is available on the website, as well as everything that's been done in the past, all the master plans, all the other updates to the official plan are all there. Over the coming weeks and months, we'll be continuing with the stage 2 evaluation and mapping of our preliminary proposed settlement boundary expansion. Certainly a lot of work will go into that. And once that's ready, our intention is tentatively late spring, early summer to present that map as part of the stage 2 evaluation matrix to council and conduct consultation with public, stakeholders, and Indigenous communities. And again, there'll be a full set of consultation around that to seek input. And then again, just a reminder that a council decision on formal official plan amendment probably isn't anticipated until the fall, to give us opportunity to revise it, to prepare the necessary documentation, and to make sure that all the input that we received is integrated. So I believe that wraps up my presentation, and certainly around to answer any questions that you might have.
I've given it back to Director Huff.
Yep.
Okay, so thanks, Matt, for that presentation, and maybe just to end that presentation with a brief summary. So there's no decisions being made tonight on where the settlement boundary is going to be expanded. What the report tonight is asking for is 5 things. So one, it's an endorsement of the findings of the 2022 residential land need study, as well as an endorsement of the recommended study area, and that council directs staff to circulate notice of this project to those landowners within the study area, and that council endorse the 5 recommended evaluation matrices upon which we would undertake the second stage of this evaluation program, and that finally staff be directed to proceed to the next stage of the comprehensive review. And so with that, I'll leave it to council and questions. Thank you.
So if I can just start off with one question, and then I'll move over to Councillor Wilsey. If we move to I gotta get the name of your report. The study area, Appendix 1 study area, shows the map of our municipality, Strathroy up at the top and Caradoc kind of the side. Focusing in on Strathroy, which was the topic of conversation many months ago when we first seen this. It had quite a segment that was outside of the northeast corner of our municipality that is no longer shown on the map, which is wonderful. What I'd like to concentrate on is the area just north of Albert Street to the west, kind of in behind Seasons. That area there, I see it's not incorporated in the red lines, but it does have some black boundaries around it. Is that Strathroy-Caradoc, or is that Adelaide Metcalfe currently, or is there a decision to do something with it?
Thank you, Chair. So that is currently within the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc, but outside of the current settlement boundary.
Thank you. Any questions about my question? I see none. Councillor Wilson.
I had 2 points. One is just there's 4 sites that are still listed that are outside of Strathroy-Caradoc. They're not highlighted in orange on the map. They are sites 6, 19, 24, and 25. Are they going to be removed from the study, or are they going to be kept in? They're the ones that are in Adelaide Metcalfe that are not highlighted in orange on this map.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, that's right. They would be removed. They would not be within the recommended study area.
The next part was we were looking for a complete community, and what I see that is somewhere where somebody has a community, they have all the services they need there. One of the things that I've seen with all of the plans that have come forward is most of them are all residential without any commercial, and I'm looking at where the locations of those are. With the exception of the eastern part of Strathroy, there's no ability to walk to anything that's commercial. Everything have to get in their car and they have to drive. Is there any consideration, and I'd like, maybe a weighting is more what I'm looking for. I'd like to see properties where people can walk from the residences to commercials and support local business be more heavily weighted than ones where people have to get in their car and drive, especially with the lack of parking that we have in downtown Mount Bridges. And with our official plan, a lot of it talks about us trying to be a destination community. We can't be a destination community trying to attract people if there's no parking and all of our residents are trying to use that to support our businesses. I'm open to questions from other councils on that if they have a differing point of view.
Director Huff, did you want to respond to that first? There was a question or a comment. And then we'll go to Councillor Brennan and Councillor Belkman. Did you have a response to it?
Sure, I can certainly start a response, and maybe Tim or Matt will join in. But certainly one of the items that we would be identifying and evaluating is under growth management is complete communities, right? That there is a range of different types of uses that would support residential development. And so that would be part of the criteria. As for the weighting, what I'm hearing is a comment that you would like a prioritization. So that's certainly noted. And I'd leave it to Tim or Matt to pop in if they had any additional comments on that one.
Councillor Brennan? Sorry, Tim, I think Tim was going to chime in and then I'll go to Councillor
Well,
Brennan.
I just want to jump in before Tim does then,
Okay,
because
Councillor Brennan first.
if we take a look at the report that's been provided us, on page 3, when it takes a look at changes that are being recommended, I think this Councillor Wilsey's point maybe is addressed when it says request to add high-speed internet to additional evaluation criteria. Within that, it says the evaluated matrix report is to include consideration of both planned and existing infrastructure investments to allow the steering committee to consider the existence of utilities such as high-speed internet, hydro, gas, and I guess we could expand that to sidewalks in terms of what's being planned. So his point is very well taken, but I think it is addressed in the idea that we are going to, in this report, consider both planned and existing infrastructure investments. So if something were to be a preferred area, I would agree it would be great if it had walking access, and that could be included in this, just as a point to throw in here.
And before I go to Councillor Peltman, I will just say, remember, we're at 50,000 feet right now, and the evaluation matrix that is provided will be the document which is used to judge or evaluate the applications that are in front of us. So then a lot of these questions would flow at that point in time, right? How about, before I hold yours, because Councillor Peltman was in front of you.
I think maybe Tim Williams wanted to make a comment before. I'm more than happy to let him go first.
He's waved it off. Over to you. He's waved it off for the moment.
Thank you. I guess just to kind of comment on Councillor Wilsey's point is that, the retail landscape has very much changed from what it was many years ago. And you would have seen, if you look at the southwest corner of Strathroy, and you'd have Burns Variety and maybe a small plaza with a hairdressing shop and a variety store. Is that the variety store is gone by the wayside, and they are now open with gas bars, and you see the two in combination. And I don't think that any one of these subdivisions as a whole would have enough traffic to warrant the investment that it takes to put in something like that. So I think you're going to see a condensation of those kind of retail outlets that we've seen in the past to the more higher traffic corridors. But private business finds a way to satisfy themselves, and if a developer deems that there's a high interest from somebody, then they'll ask for that change to allow a piece of commercial. And a prime example, if you look at Parkview, we had 2 lots there on the corner that sat there for 20 years, and I thought for sure a variety store should have gone in there with the soccer fields and the level of activity that was going on right next door, and the private sector never deemed that as being suitable for development. So I think it's just important to note the context of what's actually being built and how things are doing as we're developing these communities. And we've certainly seen in the past year or two some proposals that have had both commercial and residential. So if you look at next to Canadian Tire, where there's a 5-story or 4-story or 5-story apartment building with commercial underneath. I would love to see more of that, because to me that's a feeder for the retail stores. And on the north end, right across from Anderson Windows, that is a street of townhouses and 2 buildings of commercial complexes. So there's some activity in that respect, but again, those are both major thoroughfares as well. So,
thank you. Is it fair to let Councillor Wilsey, and then I'll move over to Senior Planner Williams and Matt Rodriguez to finish things off for us. So Councillor Wilsey first.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that a little bit. I like everything that you're saying, Councillor Pelkman. Those multi-residential and commercial buildings are something I've been talking about for at least a year. I really like that idea as well, whenever we can make those happen. But one of the things that I just wanted to say with that is when we're looking at different places, what I'm most concerned with, and what I'm hearing most when I'm walking around, is around Mount Bridges when we do our open houses and different things. People are concerned that if we keep building residential around Mount Bridges and there's no parking in downtown, people who have to get in their car and drive somewhere are not gonna go to Mount Bridges and stop in Mount Bridges and then go to Hyde Park or Strathroy for their other stuff. If we don't have something to keep them there, or some place for them to park, or something to bring them there, we're gonna lose what we have, and then we are just gonna be a bedroom community, and there's gonna be no businesses there. That's more what I'm trying to get to, and I wanna make sure that as a municipality, we're planning to do our best to give our residents something to do, and keep them within our communities, and keep our communities complete.
Okay, Councillor Hippel.
I promise I'll be very quick. I'm actually just gonna add on to what Councillor Wilsey said. I've been thinking about this all week, actually, and like what he said, we've been listening to a lot of people that have been reaching out to us, and they've been business owners and possible business owners, and they're talking about the downtown core of Mount Bridges, and in some instances, people are, you can say we have a downtown core, and other people will say, no, you don't. But we do. And I think we don't want to lose that. We want to build that up, right? And I think exactly what you're saying is that if we keep, all I'm doing is adding on and saying exactly what Councillor Pelkman is saying and Councillor Rosie is saying. It's a positive thing to go up and have the commercial on the bottom floor per se, because we don't want to lose that. If we spread too far out, then we do lose the main concept of the business owners in the downtown area, and we don't want to do that. And that's ultimately what we're getting when we do talk to the residents in our area.
Is there any other questions from council? Councillor Kennis?
Well, mine's totally, I guess, unrelated to what the past conversation was, but I'll ask anyway. Just with all of the applicants who have applied to bring land into it, some of them are really large parcels. So my question is just, is it an all or nothing thing for those types of parcels, or can it be, a portion of that come into the urban boundary and a portion stays whatever it is today?
Thank you through the chair to Councillor Frank Kennis. So that's a good question, because certainly it's not necessarily an all or nothing. We can take parts and pieces where necessary or where it makes the most amount of sense. And we've been frank because we've had those questions asked by the landowners themselves, and we've said just that to them. Thank you.
Councillor Pelkman and then Councillor Derbyshire.
Yeah, just 2 points that I wanted to raise. Just for the public's understanding, when they talk about the amount of land required, and I know we're metric and it's supposed to be hectares, but the farms are in acres. And so for the Strathroy area, we would require approximately 102 acres. So you're looking at 200-acre farms if there's no ravines or floodplain in that. And for the Mount Bridges area, about 90 acres. And the second point that I wanted to bring up is that even though and it relates to the all or nothing comment, if it turns out that we accept, say, one farm or one piece of property that fulfills the 90 acres around the Mount Bridges, I would really like to accept another, so that we're not beholden to one landowner for growth. I think always having an option would be helpful in terms of allowing the private sector to have options in terms of being able to expand, because one property owner that maybe has a change of heart and doesn't want to sell to anybody could really influence a 20-year plan that we have if they live for a substantial amount of time. Or, I've known properties in town where someone's, had a stroke and gone to long-term care, and they haven't even been in the property or been able to do business for many, many years because they're not of mind to do business anymore. So I just think that's an important point, that we keep our options open and not be beholden to one property owner.
I will just comment to Councillor Pelkman. One of those interesting discussions that Director Huff and I have was exactly on your point about, what happens if in our grandiose minds we start talking more land than what the needs analysis talks about. And she had lots to tell me about that. And instead of putting her on the spot right now, because I don't think that would be fair, I did ask or suggest maybe giving us the very concise overview as to the repercussions of that. So that might be something she wants to speak to later, as opposed to getting into it now. And we'll stay at the 50,000 foot level for now.
Thanks, Chair. And as well, I know Matt and Tim can chime in here as well on this, but at the 50,000 foot level, under the current provincial policy context, for any of these settlement boundary adjustments, the settlement boundary adjustment needs to be based on a projection for population and housing. So there needs to be an alignment between the amount of land that you bring in versus actually what you're projecting. And so in this case, the recommendation would be that we move forward as per the recommendations of Watson and Associates, which are one of basically 2 or 3 consultants in all of Ontario who did this work and who do it all over Ontario, and so have a lot of history, a lot of experience of doing this very exercise. If there's a disconnect between those 2 things, then that can put us in a position where we might not have the numbers to justify it. And I'm saying this all under the current policy context that outlines this process. If that changes, that might change. But currently, that's where we're at right now. And I see Tim and Matt nodding, so maybe they want to expand on that as well. Thanks.
Let me go to Councillor Derbyshire, and then we'll wrap it up with Tim and Matt to kind of pull us all back into focus.
Perfect, thank you. Through you to the chair, I just want to speak on behalf of agriculture and say that we make sure that even though the barns may look abandoned, some are still active with poultry in some of these areas, which I know does create some rules. Same with specialty crops, we speak of that. There's lots of ginseng grown in this area where we're considering the expansion, especially kind of out around the Strathroy corridor. So hopefully all that will be taken into consideration when we're thinking about what to put in. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from councillors? Then how about Senior Planner Williams, and then Matt, it's your report, so you can finish us off.
Thank you, through the chair. I think there are kind of 2 points that I wanted to make with what's been said, and they go to a number of councillors, so I won't pick out one, but it started, I think, with Councillor Wellesley and his comment about a complete community. And that, I think, is 100% what Watson Associates started with when they came up with their numbers and established the amount that we're going to need for residential. And I don't want to get too down into the numbers, but they were talking about approximately 50 hectares in residential, and then additional hectares, just over 70 or 60, for all of the other sort of things that we're going to need in order to make this a complete community. And 100%, we have to be mindful of the impacts of these new lands being added to the existing community and the existing fabric that is there. And we want to see this to be an addition and an improvement to the existing community. Not just an add-on, where it's the same impacts or the same situation. We want to be able to see additional people, and just as you said, coming to the downtown core, not being a situation where these are just additional people heading further east over to Kamoko, wherever else they might head. And then the other item about just possibly going in addition to the land area than what's sort of shown in the population projections. We do have to be mindful also of the impacts that will have on the municipal finances, including things like the development charges. Because once you start adding additional lands in, you have to accommodate services for those things. Now, they don't necessarily have to be all constructed, but you have to plan for it. Meaning if there is going to be expansions of infrastructure, that has to be all included in those tallies that make their way into development charges, which then make their way into basically the permit fees associated with the permit fees or the development charges for those people to get home. So we need to be cautious about how we expand and at what rates, and ensure that that matches with the population so that we're not in a situation where we're in an overextended piece. That's a little bit of planning, a little bit of finance, it's a little bit of Director Lilcorn, a little bit of engineering. It's all of the pieces together, and what we will need to do is 100%. We need to weight them, and we need to be cautious of them, and we need to piece all of these parts together to come up with the best locations for the settlement expansion. So I would leave it at that. We have some marching orders that we're hearing today as well that we'll need to keep in mind as we're moving forward. I don't think that anything I've heard means that we need to be changing the matrix, but it certainly will be in our minds as we move forward in this step. I'll pass it to Matt up there.
Matt, did you want to finish that off?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair. Just a couple quick things, and actually a lot of great comments sort of on that first piece around complete communities. And just to add something potentially new is we'll also be looking at the infrastructure that helps connect maybe new areas, but also existing areas to the villages that they don't have to drive. Whether the Trails Master Plan identifies a new trail, or the Transportation Master Plan contemplates a new sidewalk connection, making it that it's not, for example, building a new area without any type of, active transportation connection to downtown, making it possible to complete maybe those short or small trips by foot, which is fantastic and really connecting people to the village center. Also just noting that when potentially we come back with a map, it's not going to have specific areas that are, parks, schools, shopping. It's going to be actually pretty high level. It's going to be employment and community or residential. And there may be some more work required to actually identify and delineate, say, a commercial area or a mixed use area within that. And certainly we'll be taking all of that into consideration as we advance through the evaluation. And one thing, I guess, just on the discussion around, going beyond what the 2022 residential land needs assessment says, is that a lot of this work is sort of important to ground that a lot of this work is being completed within the context of the county's growth projections, but also the county as the approval authority for any future official plan amendment. And so certainly council can make decisions around planning matters, but when it gets to the county, all of that information is taken into account as part of their review and their approval of the official plan amendment. And so, anything that we recommend has to be justified, has to be explained, and has to be put into context. And so, for example, if the county says we're going to have 100 new people, and we're now planning for 2,000 new people, making those numbers up, that they may have questions about that as part of their approval, and so we need to be cognizant of that as we advance to the evaluation and the next stages of this process.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much.
So I'll bring council back to, there's recommendations in front of us for motion. There's 4 of them. If you look at page 1 of 6 of the primary report, there are 4 recommendations that are in front of us. I'll ask council, do you want to deal with them all at the same time? Does anybody want to draw one out? No? I see.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's 5 recommendations. Just for the record, I think there are 5, let's say.
I only see 4 VATs on the front page. So, is there 5?
There's 5.
I'm missing one. Anyways, my button's not working. Okay, somebody cut me off. I'll talk loudly, not like I usually do that. So do we have, I guess I should read them out for the record. Is that correct? No, everybody's out on our buttons.
Yeah,
Okay, let's proceed. Talk loudly, Deputy Mayor.
I can do that.
I know.
You want me to read all 4 out for the record? You would, okay.
You should, yes.
So I'm looking for, a motion. Council endorse the findings of the 2022 Residential Land Needs Assessment Report completed by Watson and Associates in relation to both residential land need and employment land need. That council endorsed the recommendation study area, Appendix 1, based on the 4 study area foundations identified in Section 5.1 of the Stage 1 Evaluation Matrix by WSP, being that the lands within the study area should be within your municipality. The lands within the study area must be contiguous with the urban settlement area of Strathroy or Mount Bridges. The lands within the study area must be serviced or capable of future full municipal services. And lands within the study area must be larger than the land required in the 2022 RLNA and employment land study. That council directs staff to circulate notice of the comprehensive review project to landowners within the study area. That council endorsement of the 5 recommended evaluation criteria identified in Section 5.2 of Stage 1 Evaluation Matrix by WSP, being infrastructure services, community connectivity, environmental protection, agriculture, and growth management, and that, number 5, staff be directed to proceed to the next stage of the comprehensive review. Do I have somebody to make the motion? Councillor Brennan, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Kennis, thank you. All in favor? Motion carried. I gotta get back. Do we have more to do? We do. Still doesn't work on our mics. Over to you for bylaw planning activity summary report. Speak loud.
Okay, so this next report is a report, and it's just to be received for information. It's the second only annual report of the Building, Bylaw, and Planning Department. And what I'll do is I'll just really quickly go through some of the high-level findings of the report. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. So I'll start with the Building Department. So number 1, we've had a number of staff changes in 2022. And one of the more significant projects that we did was an update to our DC bylaw. The stats, you'll see that we started strong in Q1 to Q3 for the number of building permits, but it did slow down in Q4 as it did across Ontario. In total, we had 366 permits, 112 new residential dwelling units, and over $100 million in construction value. For the bylaw division, again, just in terms of division highlights, again, a number of changes to staff. We've transitioned to an online complaint system as well as a cloud-based work tracking program. And we've also entered into a 2-year service contract with Southwest Middlesex that is going very well to date. Like other recent years, bylaw occurrences have been high. They continue to be high, as well as at this point in time. And finally, with respect to the planning division, again, 2022 was a year of changes. I will highlight that we did adopt our first major update to the official plan since it was created back in 2008, which is a huge step and one that there was a few years of work put into. We also have started to implement a cloud-based application portal. We started with minor variances. We're going to be moving into site plans and then rezoning applications. So again, trying to gain any efficiencies that we can in our processes through an online cloud-based permitting system. And then we've pivoted to the various provincial changes through Bill 109, Bill 23, and bringing forward a number of changes to deal with those. And one of those things is you'll see a bylaw on tonight's agenda for site alteration that does provide a response to a number of the changes made through Bill 109 and 23. In total, there was 96 new applications, as well as staff processing the applications from previous years. So certainly we are working on more than 100 files per year between the two planners and myself. In there, I've also provided some stats on residential zoning activity. So just to provide that high level, how many new residential units have we approved, not through plans of subdivision, but through just rezonings. And through 6 new rezoning applications alone, that's over 235 new residential units. And to the point that was brought up earlier, almost all of those new residential units approved by zoning were something other than single detached dwellings. That's all apartments, townhouses, multi-unit developments. So that's really exciting to see. As well, as you may recall, so Bill 109 delegated the authority of site plan approval to staff province-wide. And so because you don't see those site plan agreements come before council anymore, what I've also done is included just a very high-level summary of the site plans that have been approved in 2022, and we'll continue to do that and to provide that information to council on a go-forward basis. So with that, I'll just leave it for council and happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
I just want to send it over to Council Brennan for a moment. Figure 3, your comments earlier about Mr. Langford's comments. Is figure 3 something you wanted to comment about with single detached and detached total units being built? If not, I can comment. I just don't want to steal your thunder, that's all.
Oh, well, go ahead.
Okay. I see I put you on the spot, so I apologize. But
I think I was trying to reference, if I go back now, figure 6, additional building activities. Oh, no, that's not the one. That's not the one. Excuse me.
Go to figure 3. I think
it's figure number 3. Yeah, but I think it just demonstrates that not only are we saying that we're going to begin to have some intensification, that intensification is beginning, and it's something we've been talking about doing, and it just takes time for that to occur. It's figure 10, I think, that really shows it. Subdivision condominium application to be by number of units, location, and density. If you go to the bottom line,
right,
you have low and medium density, and low is 1052, and medium is 521. So you're looking at, I think, something that's significant. I don't think, and maybe Councillor Talkman can't correct me, but I can't remember a ratio like that before. So this is something new, and if I take a look at the chart, we don't have anything yet in the high density, but if we were to look into the future, we may, based upon some of the approvals that we've done. And it would be fun, because it's fun to have fun with statistics, but it'd be fun to extrapolate at this point what it would be 1, 2, 3 years from now, given what we've got in the pipeline. If things go according to plan. We can't really do that because of market conditions, but assuming that these approvals actually materialize, I think we'd be looking in maybe 2 years, we might look in the high column and we might see numbers there. As yet we don't, but I think we will, and I think that shows that we're trying to responsibly use our inventory of land within the existing settlement boundary to the best as best we can, and to expand the inventory of housing available as best we can, insofar as we don't control market conditions. So, there.
I forget who had their hand up first, Councillor Pelkman or Councillor?
I don't know.
Ladies first?
Oh. Actually, this has nothing to do with that. I actually have a really quick question for you. If we go to figure 4, your annual building permit valuation summary, I just honestly have a question for you. In 2019, I was looking at the agriculture, and the number on that is incredibly high, and that's the only year that it's incredibly high. And I want, can help tell me why?
Thank you through the chair to Councillor Hippel. So without having the exact statistics right in front of me, I would say, and it comes to mind, 2 fairly significant agricultural projects that we had on the go. One of them might have been a greenhouse and the other could have been a dairy farm. So I can't confirm that. I can perhaps get back to you on that, but that's what I think is going on in those years.
It's just such a massive jump, right? And then it just goes back down. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Sorry. Easy.
Councillor Pelkman? You've been muted, as we all have.
Talk about muscle memory. Just wanted to add that you know, with intensity comes a lot of other things that we got to think about, such as creating green space for people to go to, because the reality is with the price of land and how much housing has increased, is that the expectation of having a 4-bedroom house with a big backyard is probably gone for a lot of people that can't afford that anymore. So maybe you're looking at, you know, one of the things that's planned off of Darcy is the stacked townhouses. And so with that, you're gonna get a patio, but if you wanna get away from your household, then you're gonna be looking at a municipal green space to get away. The increased traffic levels with that density is something that we're gonna have to deal with. The other thing though, with the density becomes the feasibility of a transit system at some point, because I think some of these people are gonna be looking at, well, I can afford the rent, but maybe I can't afford a car to go with it. And if we have a transit system, then they can make that choice. But without a transit system, it makes it very difficult. And then, you know, just to note the gentleman in the room, obviously densification makes a difference for fire suppression and the types of stuff that we need to spend there for the fire department and for engineering and sewer, and like there's lots of implications to it. So it's just not as simple as saying that you know, we don't need a farmland, and we don't, because farmland contributes a significant amount of revenue and jobs to our municipality. Never want to understate that. Densification is as much as I want to see it, comes with a lot of things to consider.
Well, you work.
Deputy Mayor, see if you work.
I don't.
I thought
It's good to be important.
I'd like to point out my mic works. This is through you, Chair, to Director Huff. Just a question. Bill 109, off the site plan agreement, go to staff. Is that helping at all? Is that speeding anything up?
Through the chair to Mayor Grantham. So certainly it does in the back end, in the sense that we're able to draft the agreement and then sign it with the proponent immediately, rather than having to just wait that period of time that it takes for an agreement to get before council. So there is a few weeks of savings on that end of things, which when usually you're in site plan, proponents are very eager to get going. Normally it's holding them back from a building permit. So those couple weeks do make a difference.
Thank you. Sorry for not looking to my right. Is there any other questions from council? If not, I'm seeking a motion. That is on report BEP 2023-38 be received for information. Do I have somebody to make it? Councillor Hippel, Councillor Wilsey, all in favor? Passed. Thank you very much, and I will turn it back to you, your work.
Thank you. Engineering and Public Works, Councillor Pelkman. Let's see if you can speak loudly if your mic's not working.
Still doesn't work. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So I want to thank Deputy Mayor McGuire for bringing this topic up, because one thing that I did know going door to door in the fall, I heard it loud and clear. Anything above Panel Lane, there's traffic concerns, traffic concerns, traffic concerns. With the 40 kilometers an hour on Head Street, what is happening is people are siphoning off onto Darcy and then again onto Thorne and Agnes to try and get around that 40 kilometer hour speed limit, and they're just flying down those streets. So when Deputy Mayor McGuire suggested the four-way stop at Thorne and Stephen and Head Street, that was a door to open to looking at the whole area and make sure that we didn't make that problem worse. So I had a really good discussion with Director Strauss on some of the things that I think we could look at, and I will turn it over to him to explain what's in front of you.
Since my mic doesn't work, through the chair to council. As the chair mentioned at the March 6th council meeting, the council did direct staff to come back with a report on traffic calming solutions just north of Panel Lane within Strathroy. If you go to the actual chart portion of the report, sorry, the picture portion of the report, it does identify stop signs and speed humps. There is some stop signs that aren't shown on there. We are just showing the proposed one, but at Head Street and Thorne Street, it would be an always stop. There is also an always stop at Middlesex Drive and Darcy Drive.
Is it possible to share that on the screen for the public to see?
So through the chair, I am not connected to Zoom, but if somebody is and wants to, I can offer that.
I don't know who.
I can continue on.
Yeah,
Just
go ahead.
kind of with, so the speed hump locations that will be brought up here shortly, they were selected so that they wouldn't impact any driveways, so they're within the green grass boulevard areas, so you don't back out of your driveway and hit the speed humps. I do want to note that the locations of the stop signs and the speed humps, they are based off of council feedback. It is not staff's recommendation, as staff does not have the supporting data behind it. And the only area that we do have the data on is the intersection of Head Street and Thorne and Stephen, which it did not actually meet the criteria within the OTM traffic manuals for an always stop. So now that this is on the screen, at Head Street and Thorne, which is kind of in the center, that would be an always stop. There is not, this, as I mentioned, the stop signs at Middlesex Drive and Darcy Drive. That is also an always stop, but it is not shown on there because it's already existing. And then the yellow, I'll call them diamonds, are the proposed speed humps. And again, the stop sign at Agnes and Thorne is also going to be an always stop, as there is already stop signs at the Kemp and Agnes intersections. Other than that, I'll just leave it open for discussion or questions.
Yeah, I'll just add that the complaints that I heard was definitely on the north end of Darcy, as the houses are quite a bit set back from the street, that the speeding was quite rampant there, and that on the corner of Thorne and Agnes, the people turning there were turning at quite a high rate of speed and cutting the lanes, making it a dangerous situation for people backing out of their driveways. So while I recognize that the statistics don't warrant perhaps the measures that we're taking, people's actions, I think, are. And for a safety perspective, particularly when we get the subdivision off of Darcy and the stacked townhouses, there'll be a lot more traffic down that street again. So yes, Deputy McGuire.
Thank you. So I would like to thank Director Strauss and yourself for putting this together and doing the work on it. And I respect 100% that Director Strauss says the data is not there to support it according to the Ontario traffic manuals. So their report was 100% accurate and correct, and I accept it as an absolute correct report. And my request to have this brought before us is because the difference between what OTM says as guidelines and what we need to do, or what I was motioning to do as politicians, council for this municipality, which has driven this report. So I am so happy to have this report in front of us, and it receives my full endorsement. Thank you.
Councillor Brennan, and then
My microphone works. I don't know why. Thank you for the report. I see it's for information. I don't know what the plan is to do with it tonight, but I do have a couple of questions for Director Strauss, and one would be through the chair to Director Strauss. Speed humps. To what extent will this affect snow removal?
Through the chair to Councillor Brennan. So we were looking at the option of having a permanent asphalt speed hump. There may be little small sections where the blade would go over the speed hump, but our abrasives would likely clean that up afterwards. So there shouldn't be any impact to our snow plowing abilities.
And thank you very much for that. Second question through the chair would be street drainage in terms of when we have a summer thunderstorm. To what extent would these be affecting drainage of water on the street? Would we be avoiding pooling or any other drainage problems?
Through the chair to Councillor Brennan, it would be, what we're proposing is 3 separate speed humps. They will have areas where you have drainage that water can get through, and it would not be all the way to the curb, so the water could get to the curbs.
And final question then would be, we're looking at these speed humps in this area. I'm just wondering in terms of the cost to install, cost to maintain. If this becomes something that works and we get requests for them to be installed in other parts of the municipality, would this end up presenting a challenge to your department? I mean, to what extent would we be able to handle these speed humps if they proliferated throughout the municipality?
Through the chair to Councillor Brennan, we do have proposed in our 2023 capital budget for some money to support installing traffic calming measures, so it would just be a continuous item that could be brought back up as these matters arise, but I don't see it being a large challenge, as it is not overly costly to install these.
Mayor Grantham.
Yeah. And thanks, Councillor Brennan. You segued into my questions regarding speed bumps. Through you, Chair, to Director Strauss. I know that stop signs and stop lights are regulated by the traffic regulations. Are speed bumps regulated by the same act, same regulations as stop signs?
Through the chair to Mayor Grantham, no, they are not. They are within our traffic calming policy that was adopted through our transportation master plan.
Councillor Brennan.
Just a follow-up comment occurred to me today when I was out having my walk. Saw some people blow through stop signs. See that almost all the time on my walk, unfortunately. The neat thing is you can't blow by a speed hump. The speed hump is there, and if you want to rip out your muffler or your chassis, I guess you just don't slow down. But the thing is that you can't ignore a speed hump. It's there, it's physical, you're going to have to deal with it. And I think for that minority of people who blow through stop signs, the reality of speed humps might be a material thing that they actually have to take into effect and actually slow down for the sake of their car. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. I lived at a 4-way stop at the corner of Adelaide and High, and saw somebody every week blow through that stop sign. They can be, you think you're safe, but maybe you're not, kind of situation. However, in these cases, certainly I think the traffic volume at Head and Thorn and Stephen that's a pretty significant traffic volume. People will learn that pretty quick. And the addition of stop signs at Thorn and Agnes, it's really a safety factor for the people living on that corner. I heard it from 2 individuals there. So even if people do end up blowing through it, at least they're slowing down, and if they get caught, they'll only do it that last time because it'll be expensive. Again, my apologies to the people who'll be riding the fire trucks as you go over the speed humps, because that's going to be like probably riding on the back of a bus. But I think it's a significant safety factor for the north end of town. So, yes, Councillor Hippel?
I just, through yourself to Director Strauss, have you had any conversations about Collins Way or Woods Edge in Mount Bridges because I know that there's a lot of communication from families in those areas, and I know that they've been concerned about the speeding. Not always just about the people that live in the area, but sometimes trucks and things that are coming in for deliveries and such are like just flying down the roads when their kids are getting home from school, and you know how busy they are. So have we had any conversations about that?
Through the chair to Councillor Hippel, yes, we have, and we've been working with the police who own 2 speed radar trailers. I know they have been deployed within Woods Edge in past, and they will be deployed again. And once we have that data, we will be bringing all of that to our next traffic committee meeting, and then that will also come into a report back to council as well.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, and to touch on Collins Way as well, that will be included as well.
Okay, thank you.
I kind of see this as a trial to see if it actually works on a larger scale. So if there are no other comments from council, the recommendation is that council receive the report for information. However, definitely the floor is open to something different. Yes, Councillor McGuire, or Deputy Mayor McGuire.
I'm still muted. They don't want me talking. I will make the motion that council receive the report, EPW 2023-21 for information and implementation.
I'll second.
So moved by Deputy McGuire, seconded by Councillor Hippel. All in favor? No one's opposed. That's carried unanimously. So that brings us to the next item, Mount Bridges wastewater treatment facility and the River Birch biodisc report. And I will again turn it over to Director Strauss to introduce it.
Thank you. Through the chair to the council, I will just be very high level. This report is for the performance evaluation and recommendations from a third-party company named River Birch, who did visit our Mount Bridges wastewater treatment facility and provided feedback on how to best optimize our facility in the short term. After reviewing the report, staff's recommendation is to continue on the same path of extended aeration. We do have 2 ECA submissions into the ministry. The one is what I'll call an interim solution, and that's utilizing the spare tank for equalization. And the other one is the actual process change from the RBCs over to the extended aeration system. And it also does include additional headworks. So I'm just going to leave it open for questions at this point.
Questions from councillors? Councillor Wilsey?
To Director Strauss, through the chair, if we wanted to implement any of the repairs or things in the biodisc report, would we need MECP approval to do any of those, or would they just be considered repairs?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, there will be ECA applications needed for some of the repairs that they've noted. The actual installation of a different RBC would warrant an ECA. Heating of the RBCs would, and potentially, depending on what their proposal for the installation would be, that may as well warrant an ECA.
Are there any other questions from members of council? Oh, Councillor Brennan?
Seeing none, I'd be moving the acceptance of Director Strauss's report, and I'd be calling for a recorded vote.
All right, so that's a motion. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Kennis? Are there any further questions or comments? All right, then we will start with Councillor Brennan. Yea or nay?
I vote in favor of the director's report.
Councillor Derbyshire?
Yay.
Councillor Wilsey? Councillor Kennis?
Yes.
Mayor Grantham?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McGuire?
Nay.
Councillor Hippel?
Yes.
And I would be a yes as well. So that is carried 7-1. And that moves us on to, where do we go? The next one, which is the Queen Street reconstruction tender. And I will again turn it over to Director Strauss for introduction.
Thank you. Through the chair to the council, this report is for a tender award for construction, and it will be another it would be a pre-approval for the 2023 capital budget if passed. The project is to fully reconstruct Queen Street from Carroll Street to the CN tracks. This would fully urbanize the street and replace all the necessary underground infrastructure. It is also including a piece off of Rosewood Court that attaches to Queen Street. The staff and our consultant reviewed the bids. The lowest bid was Omega Contractors, and we are recommending the award. Omega does have previous experience in Strathroy. They did complete, I'll call it the largest reconstruction project, Caradoc Street, and it was on time and within budget. This project total inclusive of the construction, the contract administration, and the municipal HST share would require just under an additional $1 million from that would be a pre-approval of the 2023 capital program, as we did have $4 million that carried forward from 2022 that was already approved. Other than that, I'm available for questions.
Yes, Councilor Brennan?
Thank you, Chair Pelkman. Questions through you to our Finance Director or the Acting CAO, Mr. Dakin. Seeing as this is one of several pre-approvals to the capital budget, we have not yet passed the capital budget. Before we vote on this motion, I just want to make sure that what are we up to in pre-approvals in terms of the capital budget, and if we vote for this, is this consistent with us coming through with a capital budget that we can afford?
Through the chair to Councillor Brennan, so I think we're up to close to 10 million with this one of pre-approval. That's overall, that's not 100% tax, so that's all the inputs. Without the total, we had about 3 million, if I'm not mistaken, from 2022. The 2022 budget included 3 million in taxation. So without looking at the numbers, we're probably inching up on that one now. So basically everything that's been pre-approved would bring us pretty close to a 0% if we stick around the 3 million mark for the capital work. So there won't be a lot of other projects that could be added, put it that way.
So then just to fill up, so we can do this without incurring a radical increase in taxation. Is that what we're saying? It's 0%?
Through the chair to Councillor Brennan, that is a loaded question.
It certainly is. It certainly is. I'm smiling when I do it.
Without, how do I best word this? Without knowing all the other things that council would like to approve, we're inching up on approving the majority of the money that we already have in the budget without an increase.
Correct. So we have not yet reached that. And so in other words, we can do this. We can do this, and we haven't reached that point yet. So depending on what we do in the capital budget, we're okay at this point.
At this stage, I think we're okay. Yes.
That's all I want to get.
Yeah.
And I understand that's the case. I just want to get it out there because it's getting late in the year. We haven't done a capital budget yet. We're approving lots of things, and people out there might be saying, what are they doing? And I just want to make sure that they understand that we're aware that we have not overreached at this point in terms of the overall plan. If we behave ourselves at the capital budget talks, we can still do this without having a huge increase in taxation on the capital budget. I guess that's the point I'm trying to get out there. So thank you, Chair. And thank you, Director.
All right, Councillor Wilsey?
Just looking at this to you and to Director Strauss, it looks like this one is under budget as the other ones have been so far. And maybe this goes to interim CAO Dakin as well. With all of these being underneath their budget, does that make the budget less concerning coming forward? Because this looks like it's about $2.5 million less than budgeted. When I look at those numbers, if we're in 5.5 and we budgeted 7.7.
It makes life a lot easier.
It's harder to screw up.
Through the chair to Councillor Woodley, I can probably retain the amount of hair I do have left, put it that way. But all it is basically reducing what we had asked for. So now you're actually approving money. So I would say that of the projects we've already included, yes, they've been coming in under budget. So that's gonna reduce the potential ask, but to sort of commit to saying it's gonna reduce the overall ask. Obviously, it reduces the overall ask, but it may have a bearing on the final outcome.
Deputy Mayor McGuire?
Nope, still muted. Good thing I talk loud. So through you, Chair, to either Director Strauss or Acting CAO Dakin, when we consider this report in front of us, historically or by policy, is there, I'll use the term evaluation matrix, because I like that term coming out of engineering. Is there a matrix that we should be applying to making our decision, either by policy or by history? Or maybe past council, I see Councillor Kennis looking at me. Historically, are we doing it exactly like past councils have done it, or are we missing a step?
So I'll answer that by saying none of these projects have been discussed in a short time frame. They have been many years on the list. Like Drury Lane, for instance, has probably been a decade on the list.
So you're not, I didn't give my question right then. So we're being asked to look at 5 different contractors and award to one of the contractors. When we make our decision about that, are we doing it the exact same way you have done it for 20 years? Or did you used to apply some sort of scoring matrix to these 5 companies in making your decision?
I'll let Director Strauss that. I know the answer, but he'll probably verbalize it better than I will.
Well, maybe I won't, but through the chair to Deputy Mayor McGuire, it is consistent with how we've done it in past. So the staff do, well, being in the industry, we do know these contractors, and all of the contractors on this bid sheet would be more than capable of doing this project. And we do review with our consultants the tender process, what they've submitted, their prices, make sure that the prices make sense to what actually the materials are. And of course, also that they can make their bonds and their timelines. And we typically have a pre-discussion with the contractor, and they're very eager to go. But this is consistent with how we've historically done it.
Thank you.
If I might add.
Yep, go ahead.
Through the director to Deputy Mayor. So we do apply a matrix on the tender document. So on the tender document, it includes an evaluation process that our consulting engineers, in this case, would walk through each of those vendors and make sure that they meet all those criteria, and then score them based on that. Obviously, price is part of that, but reputation is huge, to be honest, in a lot of these sort of, I'll call infrastructure jobs, because just the amount of work you're doing and the technical aspect of that work. So those are differently scored depending on the type of tender. So obviously roads tenders would be scored at a different matrix than, say, recreation for play equipment, for instance. But there is a matrix that is applied through those, and typically they are reviewed. Majority of our tenders are reviewed by third parties.
Councillor Kennis?
I guess just a question on the tenders we've gotten so far on the 3 projects have all been substantially lower than what we anticipated, and I just was looking if there's a reason why that is. I know one of the things that we were guilty of in the past was perhaps letting our contracts too late into the year, and so a lot of the contractors already had their lineup of work for the year, and so yeah, our job was not as attractive because they had already lined up a lot of work for the year. So just wondering, you know, is it that plus the cost of materials has gone lower, or what's the story on all of this? So.
Through the chair to Councillor Kennis, I think you hit the nail right on the head. It was that we put this out on the street in the right timeline, and contractors haven't filled up their schedule. I personally have not seen the materials come down. These are just contractors giving hungry pricing and needing the work. So it's important that we pass our budgets early, or have pre-approvals, and get this great pricing. So
I had one question. I know I asked it prior to the engineering being done, but is there any subsurface drains being put under the streets, particularly in the Rosewood Court area? Because I know that Back in the years when the water table was really high, there were basements there that had flooded.
Through the chair, to the chair, yes, there is.
Excellent. Any other questions from any members of council? Seeing none, there is a recommendation that council receive report EPW 2023-23 Queen Street Reconstruction Tender Award, and that council award the Queen Street Reconstruction Project to Omega Contractors, Inc. for $4,429,000, $295.62, excluding HST. And that council award BM Ross and Associates Limited the contract administration for the amount of $415,000 exclusive of HST. Made by Councillor Wilsey, seconded by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Anyone opposed? No one? That's carried unanimously as well. I think I've spent enough money on behalf of council. So I will turn the meeting back over to the mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pelkin. Move to item 8.4, Chief Administrative Officer, Acting CAO Dakin. Were you going to take this one, or was it going to go to Director Payne for both items?
We're going to tag team Director Payne.
Wonderful. Good evening, Council, Your Worship, to the rest of the Council. So the report before you is a hiring report. Some background on this: in January of this year, we had a resignation of one of our parks and facility operators. So this report is filling that role. So I'm happy to announce we did recruitment on that, and we made an offer to Ryan King. Mr. King joins us from the Municipality of Southwest Middlesex. Some background on Mr. King with respect to the operations. He has worked at many arenas across, I guess, this part of Ontario. He's worked in Elmer at the East Albion Community Center. He's worked at the Western Ferris Sportsplex, and most recently he comes to us from the Municipality of Southwest Middlesex. So happy to have him come on board. He has joined the team as of March 20th of this year. With respect to budgetary considerations, there is none, as it is currently a budgeted position. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion to accept report HR 2023-07, hiring report, Parks Facility Operator, be received for information. Councillor Kennis, Councillor Hippel, all in favor? Carried. I think we'll be up with Mr. Payne again.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this report, Council will be apprised that last council meeting we talked about the recruitment of the CAO position. So we've gone back from last council meeting. We've struck a hiring committee, members of council, and we actually met on March 24th to further review the job description. So in front of you, I do have the finalized job description, that we would use that in the posting. My goal is to have this posted Wednesday of this week. I also heard council discuss or talk about wishing to be apprised or made aware of the process, just where are we going from the process. So I've also attached a recruitment timeline just to show us a little bit of timing with respect to what that may look like. So I just want to mention though, on that timeline, it may be adjusted, some of the events in that timeline based on the recruitment process. So if we get many candidates or if we get no candidates, we may have to adjust that accordingly. But at least it gives you the idea of some of the milestones that we'll see in the process as we embark to get our new CAO. One thing that the recruiting committee did discuss was adding in an additional layer of interview. So we're going to do interviews. We're also going to add in a layer of testing, profiling, leadership personality type testing that I'm looking at different vendors as we speak. So happy to answer any questions if council may have it.
Any questions of Director Payne? Deputy Mayor McGuire.
Live again here. It's not such a question, Director, but it is just a comment about the timeline. So for council, it's an aggressive timeline. If everything goes as the director hopes, I got the right word, then we're good. But understand, if there's a glitch, the glitch could bounce us 2 weeks because some of this comes back to council. Well, quite a bit of it comes back to council. So any hiccup is not just a day or two, but potentially a 2-week hiccup because it's got to come back in front of this group before moving to any other phase.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, recommendation that report HR 2023-08 be received for information, and further, that council receive the recruitment timeline for information, and further, the council approve the attached job description for the position of Chief Administrative Officer. Deputy Mayor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Hippel. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Director Payne. Okay. Moving on to reports from boards and committees. Did anyone have anything they wish to speak to? Seeing none. I just have one, and then I think you have something we want to comment about the striking committee, but before I begin, just want to comment on Caradoc Housing Corp, the meeting minutes, and just in addition to it, we have asked, or I have asked in my role as president of Caradoc Housing Corp, just to seek advice from solicitor on updating our governance and bylaws. The bylaws as they are were struck in 1981, I believe. There is some updating that needs to happen, and that full report will be coming to the next council meeting for everyone to look at. So strictly just updating governance and bylaws. That will happen in next council. Striking committee minutes. I don't know if you want to address this, Deputy Clerk.
Sure, through the chair. So just to note that striking committee did meet, and they do have a recommendation for an appointment for the Community Development Advisory Committee. You'll note in the minutes that they did also make a recommendation to the Museum Advisory Committee, but unfortunately that individual has declined the appointment. So at this point, I suppose it would be up to members if they wish to refer the matter back to striking committee or make an alternative recommendation.
Thanks, Deputy Clerk. Councillor Brennan, you had a comment?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. In the past, administration striking committee would only really meet once, and it would set up the committees. Then any absences would be taken care of, or any vacancies would be taken care of by those committees that have been struck, where the committee itself would do a search, do a recommendation, and then in their minutes, we would see who was recommended, and then council would approve it at council. So I would recommend that the process that we've used in the past take place, and that the striking committee no longer needs to meet.
Questioner second. Seconder? Okay. So motion by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Pelkman, that we refer the appointment back to the actual committee, which seems fair. And all those in favor? Carried. Just a note, Councillor Derbyshire, you didn't vote. Is that a no vote?
I wasn't really paying
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so recommendation, oh, sorry, Councillor Pelkman.
Just a point, especially since it's the museum committee and I was on it for like 20 years. You know, that's a pretty a tight community, and nobody knows better who would participate in the committee than that group. So to bring it to the striking committee just really doesn't make a lot of sense when they're going to know who to ask in the first place.
Any other comments? Okay. Recommendation, receive the reports from boards and committees, be received for information. Deputy Mayor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Pelkman. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, move on to consideration of bylaws. Deputy Clerk.
So the first bylaw on the agenda for council's consideration was bylaw number 1523, which related to the drainage matter that was deferred earlier in the meeting. So we will also be, we will not be reading that bylaw at this time. Bylaw number 1923 is a bylaw to prohibit and regulate the placing or dumping of fill, removal of topsoil, and the alteration of the grade of land in the municipality. Looking for first, second, and third and final reading.
Were there any questions regarding that bylaw? Okay, motion to accept bylaw 1923, receive first, second, and third and final reading. Councillor Pelkman, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Carried.
And bylaw number 2123 was referenced earlier, a bylaw to amend number 8122, appointing members and council representatives to certain authorities, boards, and committees for the 2022 to the 2026 term. So this would just be for the recommendation for CGAC.
Okay. Recommendation of bylaw 2123 receive first, second, and third and final reading. Motion to accept. Councillor Hippel, seconded by Deputy Mayor McGuire. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Deputy Clerk. Item 11, new business. Is there any new business? Deputy Mayor McGuire.
I have one item that I think it'd be best to bring this to council's attention. It would require going in camera. It would involve identifying a member of staff.
Okay, motion to go in camera. I won't deny that request. Do you have a question or point of procedure?
Just point of order. Could we do this at the end of our regular meeting?
Absolutely, we could.
Yeah. So
I just had to bring it up in new business.
We move it down the agenda and we adjourn from this and go into camera at the end of the regular agenda.
Approval. Okay. Thanks, Councilor Brand. Any other new business? Councilor Wilsey.
So, as we've been going through, we've had a lot of talks about biodisc and the report that we've done and the future and kind of where Mount Bridges is going to grow and the sewer system and how we're going to service that. And with the upcoming master plan, there's a whole bunch of things that are kind of coming together. And one of the things I'm looking at is with all of the reports that we've done, we seem to be stuck on this number of 825 as the current maximum limit for what was initially done 10 years ago, and that's what the new ECA that we're looking for if we're going to extended duration is set to. Thinking about all of that and how that's going forward, we'll understand there's currently a process in place and a plan in place for the Mount Bridges wastewater plant. I'd like to make a motion that in addition to that process and as part of the budget process, I'd ask that staff bring forward a report to council on designing the Mount Bridges wastewater treatment plant to handle the future expected sewage volume of the expanded urban boundary of Mount Bridges. And I'd ask this report outline what that would mean in terms of physical expansion, the process and timelines of getting an environmental assessment on the lands we'd need, as well as the associated approvals and an estimated cost for that request.
Any questions to Councilor Wilsey?
First, we need a seconder to get it on the floor.
Okay, seconder to get on the floor. Councilor Gerby.
Yeah.
No questions.
The only question that I have is to Director Strauss in that, is there anything in that motion that would prevent the process that we already have going on or delay it?
Through the chair to the chair. Sorry, to the council. No, there isn't. The only thing of the motion is that we may not know what that expected number for the actual capacity is without doing the wastewater master plan. And I can just share with the council that the wastewater master plan that I have grouped with the water master plan, the storm master plan, that'll be coming back to next council for recommendation for award as well. But that would just be to start that study.
Did you have something, Councilor Brennan?
Yes, my thunder has been stolen by the director. I was going to recommend that perhaps we table Councillor Wilsey's motion until such time as we've had a chance to look at that report that will be coming at the next meeting.
Any follow-up, Councillor Pelkman?
Yeah, I'll actually support Councillor Wilsey in his request. When having a discussion with Councillor Wilsey after the last meeting, because I wasn't sure what he was asking. You know, I asked him, I'm going to use my own employment as an example. I know at Seasons when it was built, the infrastructure and the approvals for 22 townhouses down the driveway was approved at the time of construction. So all that stuff is there. And so what I was asking Councillor Wilsey, is that what you're looking for? Are you looking for not to build, but to plan for the future? And he indicated that it was. So the kind of work between the director and Councillor Wilsey to, to see what we could do so that we would understand what it is the ask that Councillor Wilsey's asking for. So how much is it gonna cost? How long is it gonna take? What does it mean in physical building in terms of that site? Can we even do it on that site? So I think the question's not so out of line. I think it will, in tandem with the master plan, it'll put that conversation out front and center that you know, should we be looking at it? And one of the things that I could think of right off the bat is you know, we know we're gonna build a headwater at there, and you know, that equipment can only handle so much volume. And you know, do we build the building so that a second screen could be put in side by side? And do we plan for that now, as opposed to you know, 15 years from now going, geez, I wish we would have built that building 15 feet wider. So I think there's real purpose to knowing the answer to his question.
Any other questions? We have the motion. Oh, Councillor Brennan, my apologies.
Yeah, with the explanation from Councillor Pelkman, I concur. I was just making sure that there was we weren't going to be doing something and then looking in the master plan and finding out something else. So I can see the two going in tandem. I guess sequence doesn't necessarily matter here. They both can go on at the same time. So with that said, I support the motion.
Okay. Any other questions? We have a motion on the floor from Councillor Wilsey, seconded by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Thank you. So where are we now? Yep. Yep. County Council report. Deputy Mayor, did you have an update?
I think Council.
Sorry, Councillor Pepper.
That's okay. You, on new business, I just wondered if we had anything to report on flea baying, or if we are putting that, moving that forward to another meeting.
I guess either you or I will give that director up. We believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, so I can do this from memory, that we did look at a host of options, including possible bylaw amendments where we would make flea baying a noxious weed, but if I understand correctly, the landowner had agreed to ensure that the land was cleaned up. Is that correct? Yep.
That's correct, Your Worship. There has been some additional communications between the landowner as well as the farmer, facilitated by the county weeds inspector. And so there does seem to be some action in dealing with that matter in advance of the season.
Okay. Anything else under new business? My apologies. Okay, seeing none, we will now go to the Deputy Mayor and his County Council report.
Thank you, Your Worship. So within the package is a document council highlight. If councillors wanted, they certainly, or if the public wanted, it's certainly there to review. Planning approval fees. So the county does some of our planning review. Certainly this evening we saw from Senior Planner Tim Williams, who is a county employee. So the fee for what the county does was reviewed, and it was increased slightly to cover costs at the county level. 911 Central Emergency Reporting Bureau, CERB, that's your 911 system. That's handled at the county level. So that was a new contract that was approved. Dedicated offload nursing program, that is with the EMS. So that is another system that has been approved to help reduce our EMS budget overall. Of course, they're putting out construction tenders at the same time. We all know the value of that. What I also just wanted to let council know, so county council has employed now Paul Shipway former CAO clerk with Central Elgin. He is taking on the role of interim legislative services clerk as Marcy has gone on maternity leave. The county level was approved, or county levy, the county tax has been approved at an 8.4% increase. I spoke about that last time. So what does that mean? In 2023, we now have a $52.5 million budget as opposed to 2022, which was 48.5. For residences, if your house is assessed at $100,000 by MPAC, it is the equivalent of $33.45 more per 100,000 MPAC. I can also say, you know, we live in Middlesex County, so just so you know what Middlesex County is as an organization, they have 32 service areas, and it's a very large county, both in scope and region, so servicing 450,000 people, of which our community is part of course. 6 unions, 21 different pieces of legislation govern the county, probably no different than what is going on in our own municipality, so that's quite a burden for sitting around this table and looking at our directors, the number of pieces of legislation that they have to make sure they're aware of. Social service delivery for the county is currently being carried on by the county. That is by an agreement between the county and the province. That agreement will soon expire, so we all get to wait and see how that rolls. That's my report.
Councillor Pelkman, did you have a question for the deputy mayor?
I have two, actually. The first is with the budget being approved, does that mean that stoplights at the corner of Head and Metcalf Street will be coming in 2023?
Yes, that is on the projected thing to be done for this year. And Head and 2nd Street is continuously being looked at. And as we do our development along 2nd Street, which we're talking about every other meeting basically, then we're soon to see those stoplights go in also.
Second question, I noticed a lot of flags and pylons and stuff on Metcalf Street West. Just wondering what's happening there.
High-speed internet is, fiber optic cable, I believe it is going along there. So I had a call from one of the residents just outside of town about that, and I contacted Chris Trini, Director of Engineering, and it's a high-speed internet cable that will run high-speed internet out along Hickory Drive, and I'm not sure how far it is going. Perhaps Director Strauss knows. I see him nodding. No? Don't nod when I'm looking at you, because I'll call your name, eh?
But that's good news too. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Canis.
I just wanted to pick up on the deputy mayor's mention of the county tax increase. That'll be the first time in a number of years that there's been an increase in taxes from the county, which will translate into a higher tax bill for all of us here in Strathroy-Caradoc as well, and that's not taking into account any increase in our own taxes within the municipality as well. So yes, property owners should be aware that so far the increase has not been approved by this council, but they should be aware that their taxes will be going up. And if the director, acting CAO has anything to add, I'd welcome that as well.
No, I think you said it well, that is just added on to our tax bill, so as we call it in the finance world, that's stacking. So you can stack grants and you can also stack levies, because we're a lower tier that is added to our tax bill.
Okay. Any other? Councillor Wilsey.
Do we have an update from County Council on the crosswalk in Glendon, where the signs and if there's anything beyond the signs that are going to be put on at the new crosswalk that's across Glendon?
I can answer that one, Deputy Mayor. No, I had a conversation with Director Trainee. They do have plans. We moved a little faster than the county, so the plans have always been to install the signage there. After we started with the crossing guard, I did reach out to engineer training, director of training, and they are going to move as fast as they can to get the signage up. They were just finishing some of their winter activities, but it is pending, it is coming. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you for that. I think we'll move on to inquiries or comments by members. Then after that, we'll move into closed session. Councillor Hippel.
Thank you. You gotta hold on because I've got a whole whack of things I want to say, and most of you probably aren't surprised that this is my favorite time of the night. But it's going to be kind of a love-in thing, so brace for that. And it's mostly arena things, so mostly things that have to do with skating. So we've got an incredible amount of things that have been going on in our Township arena, and one of our great things is we have a really wonderful Mount Bruce skating program, and Chrissy Kernahan was great enough to let me in on the pre-novice team. The pre-novice team are, I like to call them, these cute little boys and girls that have been out there working really hard. But they were in competitions and they won every competition, all 5 competitions, including their provincials, which is quite a coup in our small village of Mount Bridges. We also have had some really great things going on in Mount Bridges minor hockey. We've had a lot of teams going on to Ontario minor hockey championships. No one's been successful in bringing home the trophy yet, but I mean, they're getting there, they're working hard, and you know what, that's a pretty great thing when we have such success in our area. We also have a Junior C team that has been doing great things, and they are in their last round of playoffs coming up, and they've got their first 2 home games are actually, we still have ice in Tri-Township and they'll be there, so I'm really hoping that everyone will come out and support, because if and when they win this, that'll be the Yuck, if anyone understands what that is, but it's a very big divisional championship. So the Easter Bunny is coming, so this coming Saturday there is an Easter egg hunt that's put on by the Mount Bridges Optimist. And that's at 10 a.m. But all of those things you can look up if anyone's interested. You can look it up. It's all on social media, and it's in the paper. It's I believe even my FM has been talking quite a bit about all the upcoming Easter Bunny items this coming weekend. But I also, since we've been doing all this talking tonight about building and settlement boundaries and all the growth that's continuing to happen, we've got this amazing group of men and women behind us. And Deputy Mayor made a really nice comment talking about how all of us have different departments that we chair or liaison with, and mine is the fire department. And it is, so for the last 4 years, I walked in there 4 years ago, and I knew pretty much nothing other than how cool everybody was, because they're like, oh, we want to show you what we do. And they did. They opened their arms and said, come on in, and we're gonna throw you right in. And you did. And it's been the most eye-opening experience that I've ever had, and I've learned so much. I've put on I've put on the equipment. I've gone through the fog in the house, couldn't breathe. I think I lost all my air in the first 30 seconds, and so obviously I would not make a very good firefighter. But it's been a great experience, and obviously I'm still here, I'm still there, and I'm really happy to see all of you here, because you are engaging with us, you are supporting us, you are here to show us that that you matter, that we need to all work together, And that means an awful lot to me, and it means an awful lot to our municipality as a whole, because the incredible work that all of you do is like no other. I mean, let's be honest. Every little child I talk to when I'm at the schools, they want to be firefighters. Now, they really like the cool dog, and they want to, go down the big pole because they think that's what you do every day. But it's something that is important to them and their children, and this is the education that they're getting about this is incredible. So let me just thank you for coming tonight, and it's great to see the engagement that you have with all of us. And I think that's it for me. I'm going to actually stop talking.
Any other inquiries, comments? Councillor Kenneth.
I wanted to just briefly take a moment to talk about the Wright Family Performing Arts and Entertainment Center Foundation. About a week ago, it's an organization that I've been involved with for the last number of years, and last week we made the announcement of purchasing a building, the Rumors building here in downtown Strathroy, with the plans to turn that into an arts and entertainment center in the years to come. And just wanted to again mention this is only possible because of the generosity of Don and Mary Wright, two real stars that came out of Strathroy many years ago and stayed loyal to our community, and in the end left a lot of money to our community as well to get something started. And there are many other members of the Wright family who have contributed to the success of Strathroy as well over the years. So over the next couple of years, the board of the foundation is will be in the short term looking for input from the community about what we need in our community, and then from there we will make the renovations to the building and hopefully have a centerpiece within our downtown, and for our community to thrive in the years to come. So I'm very proud of what's been accomplished in the decisions made in the short term, and I'm looking forward to what progresses in the months and years to come. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Nope, thanks. Councillor Derbyshire, then Councillor Brennan.
I just wanted to say congratulations to West Lorne on winning Craft Hockeyville. It's great that a small town in Ontario got it again, so congratulations to you guys.
We'll get you, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you very much. I also like to acknowledge the attendance of our fire service here tonight. Years ago, it was Chief Gibson that I used to sit on the fire board with, and he instilled in me, some really important ideas about our fire department. And I want to thank the volunteers for having been involved in some of the feedback and data collection and ideas that we had in the fire master plan. I think that this council holds, a very important ideas about what we need to do to make sure that the legacy of our fire department is continued in this community, and that we want to make sure that any stations that we build in the near future take care of the health and welfare and good keeping of all of our members. We want to be up to date. We want to make sure that we have facilities that really take care of our people who take care of us. As well, we just want to make sure that we keep our ears open and we listen to our fire service as we go forward in taking a look at replacing station number 1 in Strathroy, and then when we go down the road and take a look at the plans for the what we do with the fire stations in Ward 2. So I just want to thank them for being here tonight. Even though they're not on the agenda, I know that we will hear from them loud and strong as we move into some agenda items in the near future where we start taking a look at what we're doing with our fire stations. So thank you for being here tonight.
Councillor Pelkman.
Yes, thank you. I too would like to acknowledge the firefighters in the room. It's hard to understate the impact that firefighters have in our community when you see them front and center at every community event. And I can remember at this year's Pride Festival was the day after a call at Seasons where I accidentally shut off the fire alarm. And they still were okay to talk to me after that, so I appreciated that very much. But you know, a number of the individuals sitting here have been on the fire department for as long as I've been on council, and you know, incredible amounts of dedication. One thing that I was very happy about for 4 years I lived on Danton Street, which is a block and a half from the fire hall, was that I heard how often you were being called out on the weekends in particular. And as we approach discussions on changing of how our fire department operates, I have that history in the back of my head about how impactful that is on your personal lives, and how how dedicated it is to go out on all those calls on Saturdays and Sundays. The second item that I have on the agenda is I'm going to do in tandem with Deputy Mayor McGuire. On February 21st, Garrett Wiedering passed away, who was a member of our police services board, our police service, for 39 years. I initially knew him through his wife Linda, that I worked with for 30 years at Zares, and it was because of Garrett that I ended up running for council. At the time, he was on the PUC commission, so I was just asking what it was like, and he told me, and he goes, "What are you interested in?" And so I told him, and he goes, "You don't want to run for PUC, you want to run for council," which is a good thing, because I would have had to run against Councillor Brennan that time, and I probably would have lost. But it's because of him that I sit here now. And I just want to make sure that we recognize that a very, very long-standing employee of our community passed away. Later in my years as a police service board member, in dealing with him, you know, what I certainly learned from him was the immense amount of pride he had, the fact that he was a Strathroy police officer for his entire career. And that as the age of the computer came in to our service, he saved our municipality tens of thousands of dollars by introducing information technology into the police service. But obviously, Deputy Mayor McGuire knew him much better than I did, so I'll just hand it over to him. Say a few words.
Yep, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I won't take too long here. Yeah, I knew Garrett growing up in Strathroy, and then had the immense pleasure of working with him. He was the sergeant in Strathroy when I came here in 1986. At that time, we had an acting deputy chief, Bob Smith, and Garrett was the only confirmed sergeant. So needless to say, Garrett had a huge role in running that very small service of the time of about 8 to 10 guys. If it wasn't for Garrett, I would hazard to say that we would be OPP, because there was many trying times back then for councils that remember. There was a number of issues that went on and had to get through. Garrett served with integrity and complete dedication to this community, and he made sure that every new officer that came here, including myself, shared that same level of dedication to the community as long as we worked here. He'll be a gentleman that will be missed in our community, certainly within the building down at the police station. He started, he told me, at the rank of cadet, the first and only cadet we ever had, according to the stories he used to tell. And when he retired, after 39 years, he retired as an inspector, which is a commissioned rank, which holds high esteem in the policing world. So for our fire members, they're well aware of what commissioned rank and non-commissioned officers are. So he was an incredible guy. I continue to have weekly breakfasts with him following my retirement, and along with a number of the other officers that had retired here from Strathroy. So he will be missed, and you know, I just send my condolences out to his family and Linda once again, even though it's a month later. So thank you.
Any other comments?
It's not about that, another issue.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'd be amiss if I don't bring this up. I have the pleasure of serving on the Strathroy Middlesex General Hospital Foundation, as does Councillor Brennan, an incredible organization. And if you don't know, foundations raise money for the groups that we're attached to, so we raise money for the hospital. There's been a multi-year project going on. It's just about to break ground, and that is where we will build housing. I won't say that it's entry level, but there are some unique aspects of this that are starting to develop, and I hope that the foundation is able to soon reveal those to the community if they come to fruition. However, groundbreaking is scheduled for Friday, the 14th of April at 2:30. The house is being built on Brennan Drive, backing onto essentially Sills Landing, right where that first corner is, and now the road's going to be straightened out and will eventually serve the new subdivision. But it's a wonderful project, and you know, it's just incredible that we have organizations like the Wright Foundation that's going to bring culture and the arts to Strathroy, and the foundation that is there to keep our hospital vibrant and present in our community. So for all of those people out in our community that sit on committees and boards that are unassociated to, you know, what we do in this building, but are fundamental to the municipality, I thank each and every one of you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay. I want to echo the sentiments of those who have expressed their appreciation for the firefighters being here tonight. From a personal basis, I understand what firefighting is all about. I've had a father-in-law who was a professional firefighter on London Fire Department for a number of years. I'm greatly appreciative. But I'm also appreciative for your attendance here for another reason that people may not thought about. Your presence here tonight shows that this is an open democracy that we live in, and we all have the right to come and express an opinion. And even your presence here tonight shows that we're open to listening and hearing what people have to say. So for that reason, apart from your service, I thank you for being here tonight. I want to end on a little bit of levity, and I have a point that I want to make about community pride and personal pride, because Councillor Hippel talked about the Bulldogs. We know the Bulldogs are playing the Thamesford Trojans, I believe they are. That is the home of Mayor Marcus Ryan, who is also the Warden of Oxford County. So we have a little bet, and this is where the community pride, we need to win that. But the personal pride, I have to wear a jersey of Thamesford if we lose. I'm a double X. All they have is a large. I do not want to have to stuff into a large Thamesford, so I will be passing that message along to the Bulldogs and the management. So we need to win that. There was a motion to go into closed session. We did vote on that, so we'll ask that we go into closed. We didn't vote on that, I apologize.
No, and actually, before we do, I just want to remind members that we actually haven't given notice for a closed session pertaining to personnel matters on this agenda. So if council does wish to proceed, just please clearly state the rationale for going in camera and report out after. But just reminding people that we do try to give as much advance notice of agenda items as possible.
Deputy Mayor McGuire, you made that motion, so I'll ask you to rationalize it.
So because of a circumstance that I became aware of, I had to reach out for advice. That advice was received just earlier today, and I think it's important for me to tell this council the details about that. It would be improper for me to tell you once we leave the room, because that's holding a closed meeting without having a closed meeting. So, and to do it in open, I believe is improper, because it will actually talk about staff and people, which seems to be one of the reasons to go into closed session. So,
Councillor Pelkman, did you have a comment?
Just a question. Is it time sensitive? Can it wait 2 weeks?
Potentially, it could be. It's dealing with a current issue, so there is a potential for it to be time sensitive.
CAO, acting CAO Dakin.
So based on that, I would defer to the clerk to make sure that we're meeting our legal requirements to move into closed session.
If council wishes, they may move into closed session, but just again, provide the rationale, which is sounding like it's about personal matters about identifiable individual.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Pelkman, sorry, I was looking in the
Yep.
rules.
Sorry, I guess another question would be that if it's an operational issue, is it something that's more should be brought to the HR director as opposed to be dealt with at council?
It is not operational.
Sorry, go ahead.
It is bylaw related, policy of council.
Yeah. Yeah, my suggestion is we'll live by the will of council through a vote of council, so you had made a motion, did we have a seconder to go? That's where we'll start. So you made the motion, Deputy Mayor, do we have a seconder to go into closed session? Councillor Derbyshire, okay, sorry. All those in favor of going into closed session? Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna ask for a recorded vote, so we need to be careful that we get it right. Councillor Pelkman.
Opposed.
Okay. Councillor Hippel.
I honestly don't know. I don't know how to, I've never done this before, so I don't know how to vote. Is that, I don't know how to answer
That's fair.
that.
Just to tell you, an abstention is, a non-vote is taken as a no vote.
Okay.
Okay? Deputy Mayor McGuire.
I meant it.
I'm in favor.
Okay? I'll say this, I don't know what it is, but there was a request. I'm gonna vote in favor. Councillor Kennis.
No.
Okay. Councillor Wilsey.
I also don't know the details, but I'm gonna vote in favor.
Yeah. Councillor Derbyshire.
I'm in favor.
Councillor Brennan.
Opposed?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just don't know. Oh my God.
It's not right though.
Tied. Okay. It's tied, since I did vote a tie is in the negative, correct? A tie is a no vote. if I
Defeats the
understand
motion.
procedure. So a tie is a no vote. Motion denied. Okay, we move on to
Good governance, good governance.
schedule of meetings. I think we all have them. Important one is next Finance Committee, April 13th. With that, we have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Brennan, second by Deputy Mayor McGuire. All in favor? Carried.